The Houston Texans just pulled off the kind of turnaround that almost does not feel real, and nobody outside that building saw it coming this fast. 3 weeks into the season, they were sitting at 0-3, written off, buried, treated like a nice story that faded before it started. Now they are 11-5, riding 8 straight wins, already locked into the playoffs again, and every team in the AFC has to ask a hard question they did not expect to ask this year. How did a team that looked done in September turn into the group you absolutely do not want to see in January, especially with CJ Stroud still climbing instead of peaking? The wild part is that this is not a lucky bounce season or some fluky run of one-score games that will disappear next year. Under their head coach, this is now 3 straight trips to the postseason, the first time in franchise history that has ever happened. And Houston has now become only the second team since the year 2000 to start 0-3 and still make the playoffs, with both of those miracle recoveries belonging to the same city. That is not random. That is culture, defense, and a quarterback who already proved, as a young player, that the stage is never too big for. Every win in this streak adds another layer, another receipt, and another reminder that this group did not just survive a bad start. They built something stronger out of it. But here's the twist that makes this run even more dangerous for the rest of the league. The game that finally locked up this playoff berth did not even show the best version of Houston. The offense was ugly for long stretches. The points dried up after that early burst, the flags were annoying, and yet the Texans still walked into SoFi against a playoff-level opponent and controlled the night when it mattered. To really understand why this team has become the nightmare matchup that no one wants, you have to step inside that Chargers game and see how a slow, gritty, 20-16 grind win said more about their true floor than any blowout ever could. But before we get into that, hit that like and subscribe button for more Texans and all the NFL content. Let's aim for 200 likes on this video. The Texans went into Los Angeles and ripped the air out of that stadium before fans even settled into their seats. Third snap of the game, short yardage, the kind of down where most teams just try to survive. Instead, CJ Stroud sees a shallow secondary, trusts his arm, and cuts loose a 75-yard missile to Jaden Higgins on a deep post, while Nico Collins, Dalton Schultz, and Xavier Hutchinson drag defenders the wrong way. One moment, it is 3rd and short. The next, Higgins is jogging into the end zone with nothing but green behind him and a Chargers defense looking around like they just got hit by something they did not even see coming. What nobody talks about enough is that the early fireworks were only the first gut punch. On the very next meaningful drive, CJ Stroud drops another big-time throw, this time to Jalen Noel, streaking across the field for more than 40 yards and another quick score. Both rookie wideouts cashing in deep against a playoff defense that thought it was ready. After that first wave, though, everything changed. Nick Caley's script ran out, the Chargers adjusted, and Houston's offense started feeling every blitz and every disguised coverage. Stroud finished with 2 interceptions, the Texans stopped finding the end zone, and you suddenly needed plays from everywhere else. You got Justin Herbert taking 5 sacks, still standing in and finding Oronde Gadsden, only for the rookie tight end to let a perfect throw bounce into the hands of Azeez Al-Shaair at the goal line. You got Omarion Hampton grinding out tough snaps, finally punching in a late score on the ground, and you got Woody Marks and Jawhar Jordan doing just enough on the ground to bleed the clock, while kicker Cameron Dicker left 4 points on the field that changed everything. The shocking part is how normal this kind of chaos has become for Houston. This was not a clean offensive showcase. This was a grind, a 4-point road win where the Texans leaned on their toughness, their patience, and a defense that refused to break no matter how many snaps it had to play. Fans will remember the deep ball to Jaden Higgins and the bomb to Jalen Noel, but coaches and quarterbacks across the league are staring at the other part of that tape, the part where Justin Herbert keeps getting chased by Will Anderson Jr., Danielle Hunter, Denico Autry, and Derek Barnett, until every drive feels like a test of survival. If this is what Houston looks like on an off night, the real story is not those 2 early touchdowns. It is the machine behind them, and that story starts with the way D'Amico Ryans and Matt Burke quietly built one of the most complete defenses in football. The part that keeps other teams up at night is not the highlight. Throws from C.J. Stroud, it is the way Houston hits you on every snap without ever looking rushed or desperate. DeMeco Ryans walked into this job and refused to sell a quick fix. He turned the Texans into a team that plays patient, violent defense for 4 full quarters, even when the offense goes quiet and the scoreboard gets tight. You watch them now, and it feels like they expect long, tense games, like they are built for those ugly stretches where most teams break. And that mindset comes straight from the head coach on the sideline, who never looks surprised by any situation. Handing the defense to Matt Burke took that identity and sharpened it even more. DeMeco still sets the standard, but Burke is the one dialing up fronts and coverages that choke out space without taking wild risks. Houston lives in that sweet spot where the numbers match the eye test. They sit near the very top of the league in yards allowed, up with the best in points allowed, and they do it without needing wild turnover luck or constant all-out blitz. This group wins with sound structure, clean tackling, and rush plans that keep quarterbacks in a shrinking pocket instead of letting them escape and play backyard football. When a defense can squeeze you like that without giving up cheap flags or blown assignments, every drive starts to feel heavier than it should. You can see it when they line up across from stars. Patrick Mahomes trying to buy time and finding nothing easy down the field. Josh Allen forcing throws that he usually rips with confidence. Justin Herbert looking downfield and seeing tight windows on every read while the rush closes in. Mobile passers like Lamar Jackson feeling spies and edges that do not lose contain. This is not a unit living off one hot season. This is a system that travels to any stadium, any weather, any tempo. And the deeper you look at how they create that pressure up front and marry it with tight coverage on the back end, the more you realize the real story of Houston starts with the front 7 that turns every pocket into a danger zone. Every snap against this front feels like a countdown that the offense cannot see, but the quarterback can feel. Will Anderson Jr. comes screaming off one side with that first step that eats up ground before a tackle even finishes his kick slide, while Danielle Hunter stalks from the other edge with veteran timing and perfect angles. Slide the protection to one of them, and here comes Denico Autry crashing inside. Here comes Derek Barnett winning on effort. Here comes a late plug from Henry To'oTo'o or Azeez Al-Shaair shooting a gap. It is never just one star making hero plays. It is layered pressure that keeps coming until the clean pocket you drew up in the meeting room turns into a shrinking box that feels smaller with every drop back. You saw it in Los Angeles when Justin Herbert spent the night dodging bodies as the Texans racked up 5 sacks and still left a few more on the field. Earlier in the year, you saw the same story with different jerseys when Josh Allen tried to set his feet and found rushers folding the pocket from both sides, or when Patrick Mahomes tried to drift and reset only to find an edge rusher mirroring him step for step. Even mobile quarterbacks like Lamar Jackson do not get the usual bailout lanes because Houston squeezes the edges tight and uses linebackers as spies instead of just extra blitzers. The stat sheet will show numbers like double-digit sacks for Danielle Hunter again and constant tackles for loss from Anderson. But the real damage is mental. After 2 or 3 drives, you can see quarterbacks hitching, seeing ghosts, feeling heat that has not even arrived yet. What makes this even more brutal is how well the front 7 and the run defense link together. Omarion Hampton tried to pound away and found nothing but bodies in his gaps. Woody Marks and Jawhar Jordan mirrored that same physical style when Houston needed to close games on their own terms. And every short yardage snap turns into a test of will that usually ends with a pile moving backwards. When you face a team that can rush the passer with 4, stone the run on early downs, and still keep fresh legs rotating in up front, you start thinking the only answer is to win fast outside. Then you turn on the tape and realize that even those quick throws are not safe, because behind this chaos is a secondary that treats every route like a personal challenge. And that is where the next problem starts for anyone lining up against the Texans. The first thing wide receivers notice against Houston is not the noise or the pass rush, it is how little room they suddenly have to breathe. You line up, look across, and there is Derek Stingley Jr. in your face playing patient, calm press, like he already knows your release before you try it. He is not chasing the ball. He is erasing your route. That is the real difference. When a corner can stay glued without grabbing, squeeze verticals without panicking, and still have the confidence to sit on breaks, the field starts to feel shorter and every step feels heavier. Quarterbacks see that on tape, and they already start trimming parts of the playbook before the game even kicks off. What makes this secondary brutal is that the problem does not end when you throw away from Derek Stingley Jr. On the other side, you get Kamari Lassiter, long, patient, and perfectly happy to live on an island. If you think he is the weak link, he is not. This season, you see lines like Kamari Lassiter already has 4 interceptions and 17 pass breakups, and those numbers are not empty. They come from him, baiting throws, driving on outs, and staying attached down the field when offenses try to pick on him instead of testing Derek Stingley Jr. Behind them sits Kalen Bullock, smooth enough to turn and run with speed, smart enough to jump in breaking routes, with a year that looks like 4 interceptions and 10 pass deflections while handling deep and red zone work. Then you have Jalen Pitre, the piece that never stands still, rolling down into the box, dropping as a single high safety, sliding into the slot, piling up lines like 4 interceptions and 12 pass breakups, while also fitting the run and timing blitz looks that you have to respect even when he is not coming. Put it all together and you get a backend that lets the front 7 hunt without fear. When Patrick Mahomes tries to stress safeties with deep crossers, the window is gone. When Josh Allen thinks he has a glance route free off play action, there's a corner driving downhill. When Justin Herbert looks for easy answers against pressure, he finds tight coverage and trust throws instead of layups. Even in the run-first games, backs like James Cook or receivers like Rashee Rice feel the hit at the end of every catch. There are no cheap yards, no free access on the outside, and no obvious matchup to spam for 4 quarters. That is the kind of secondary that not only wins downs, it changes how an entire offense has to think. And it is a big reason why the spotlight keeps sliding back to CJ Stroud. Because with the defense this complete behind him, every snap he takes on offense suddenly feels like the difference between a nice playoff run and something far bigger. The Houston Texans can have the best defense in football, and it still will not matter if CJ Stroud does not decide who he wants to be in these next few weeks. That is the real tension under everything. On one drive, he looks like the most gifted young quarterback in the conference, ripping layered throws into tight windows, changing protections, punishing defenses that dare to play single coverage on Nico Collins. On the next drive, he can look stuck in mud, holding the ball, locking on his first read, trusting talent instead of timing. That swing is what turns every Texans game into a test of nerves, not just for fans, but for every team watching tape and trying to figure out which version they are about to see. The crazy part is, his story already has proof that both sides are real. As a rookie, CJ Stroud blew the Cleveland Browns off the field in his first playoff game, then came back the next year and made big-time throws against the Los Angeles Chargers when the stage was just as bright. This season, he has had stretches where he looks untouchable, driving the ball to all levels, playing point guard, letting Woody Marks, Nico Collins, Jaden Higgins, and Jalen Noel do the damage after the catch. He also has runs where the blitz shows up, safeties rotate late, and he slips back into that bad habit of predetermining where the ball is going, almost daring the defense to jump it. You saw it in spots against Denver, Kansas City. Even in games, Houston still won. The way the league has started to copy some of those looks the same way it did to Bo Nix in Denver when his tape showed the same pattern. None of that means CJ Stroud is broken. It means he is gifted enough that every flaw gets hunted, and every step forward gets tested again in the very next game. What nobody should forget is that the Texans have already shown us a blueprint for how to calm that roller coaster. When the protection is steady, when Nick Caley leans into quick answers and screen looks, when CJ Stroud trusts his checkdowns to Woody Marks and his tight ends instead of hunting the hero play, the whole offense looks patient and sharp. When the line leaks and the call sheet gets stubborn, he starts drifting deeper, forcing tight throws to Christian Kirk or Nico Collins, and the rhythm dies. That is why the next piece of this story matters so much. The quarterback is not alone out there. His weapons, his backs, his tight ends, his tackles, all of them control how much weight he has to carry on every snap. And the moment they make his job lighter, this offense can start looking as complete as the defense that has already changed the identity of this team. The scary truth about this Texans offense is that the problem is not talent. It is how often all that talent gets used at full power. Nico Collins is a true number one who changes coverages the second he walks to the line, dragging safeties and forcing coordinators to cheat his way, even when the ball does not find him. Jaden Higgins and Jalen Noel bring real vertical speed and timing, the kind that can flip a drive or a game in a single snap if CJ Stroud and the call sheet give them the chance. Then you add Christian Kirk working underneath as a smart slot target and Dalton Schultz settling into soft spots at tight end, and you realize this is not some thin group scraping by. It is a full set of weapons that can stress every blade of grass if the rhythm is right. Behind them sits a backfield that quietly gives Houston answers for every type of game. Woody Marks brings the burst, the cuts, the screen threat that can punish aggressive secondaries and turn short throws into chunk gains when defenses sell out to stop Nico Collins and the wideouts. Nick Chubb is the hammer, the short yardage finisher who can take a tired front seven and flatten it when the Texans just need 2 or 3 honest yards to keep the clock bleeding. Jahar Jordan adds his own change of pace, hitting creases with fresh legs when defenses are already worn down from chasing Will Anderson Jr. and Danielle Hunter all afternoon. None of that works without the big guys up front, and that is where names like Ariante Ursary at left tackle, Ed Ingram inside, and Trent Brown on the right edge matter. Early in the year, that group leaked pressure and forced CJ Stroud into hero mode far too often. Over the last stretch, you can see the communication settling in, the pocket staying firm just a beat longer, the run lanes opening just enough for Marks and Chubb to keep Houston ahead of the chains. When all of those pieces move together, the entire identity of the offense changes. Drives stop feeling desperate and start feeling deliberate, like the Texans are picking their spots instead of scrambling for answers. In those games, when CJ Stroud takes what is there, trusts Woody Marks, reads through Nico Collins, Jaden Higgins, Jalen Noel, Christian Kirk, and leans on Dalton Schultz on tight downs, getting to 21 points suddenly feels normal instead of like a climb. And with the kind of defense Houston brings every single week, a scoreboard in that range almost always tilts their way. The real question now is how that balance looks. When the seeding locks in, the opponents get tougher, and every mistake in the bracket can send you home. Because the playoff road that sits in front of this team might be the part that shocks people even more than the comeback from that 0-3 start. The Houston Texans have turned a 0-3 start into a real AFC problem, locking up a playoff spot, jumping the Chargers, and lining themselves up for better matchups like a likely showdown with Jacksonville instead of cold road trips to Denver or New England. If the Jaguars stumble while Houston finishes strong, the Texans could even steal a higher seed in a home game. But either way, every contender now sees them as a brutal draw. Their only decision in the final week is whether to chase seeding or protect stars like CJ Stroud and the defensive core. Because once the bracket is set, any team that runs into this defense only needs to see about 21 points on the board to feel its season slipping away.